Hi, I'm Mich Bondesio. Welcome to Creating Cadence, a podcast about what it really takes to work well and live well at a cadence that's more sustainable for us, despite this fast-paced world we live in. I help high-performing founders, creatively minded entrepreneurs, and purpose-driven business owners who want to make an impact without sacrificing their health to burnout. I'm also the author of The Cadence Effect, and I write more about conscious business over on Substack. Creating Cadence, the podcast, is about reimagining work, exploring ideas around performance, productivity, creativity, regenerative business, digital well-being, and the future of work. Think of it as your regular dose of insight and inspiration to help you build a meaningful work-life rhythm that's more intentional, more effective, and more sustainable. So this is episode 85, the second of season 14, published in September 2025. Whether you're listening on your commute, on a walk, or in between tasks, thanks for tuning in. If you're ready to challenge outdated approaches and discover smarter, healthier ways to thrive in a fast-paced world, you're in the right place. The theme for this season of the podcast is rewriting the rules of work. And if you haven't already, I recommend you listen to episode 84, which introduces the theme and the 3 core concepts we're covering in this season. In today's episode, I'm talking about regenerative productivity and how that ties in with rewriting the rules of work. But first, some quick updates. As I mentioned last week, I'm now writing a bi-monthly column over on Substack all about building conscious businesses with regenerative foundations that serve both people and productivity needs. You can find out more at creatingcadence.substack.com. And talking about replenishing productivity, if you're a long-time listener, you'll know that in January this year, I started using Magic Mind mental performance shots as part of my intentional productivity routine. How this came about was that the team at Magic Mind had reached out to me to see if I'd be interested in doing a short challenge, and 7 days later, I was hooked and have been taking them ever since. I use Magic Mind for a variety of reasons, and they have several benefits for my health, well-being, and productivity. If you're like me, you have plenty of things in life and work that you're juggling at any given time, and sometimes it's hard to maintain the energy needed to fit that all in. And if you're in perimenopause like I am, then you may be experiencing the pains of brain fog and anxiety on top, which are both enemies of getting stuff done. I find taking Magic Mind consistently keeps me calmer and more energized for longer. I also find I worry less and can focus more clearly. It helps me maintain my performance in a way that fits well with my principles of intentional productivity that sit at the heart of my work around creating cadence. So taking Magic Mind is a win-win for me. How it works is that these liquid performance shots contain time-released caffeine, giving you a steady stream of energy rather than the typical boost-crash cycle of strong coffee or energy drinks. It also contains nootropics like L-theanine, which improve our attention, executive function, and memory. If you have a lot to juggle in your day, why not try their 7-day challenge to experience these benefits for yourself? You can use my magic code, MICH20, that's MICH20, for 20% off Magic Mind productivity shots and 48% off subscriptions. Head to magicmind.com/MICH20 to find out more. Also, a quick reminder that I'm running 3 individual Cadence masterclasses during October 2025. These practical online webinars are designed for high-achieving strivers, and each session offers focused, actionable strategies to help you reclaim your energy, protect your thinking time, and scale sustainably without sacrificing your well-being or burning out. Whether you join one or all 3, you'll gain fresh insights, regenerative tools, and a clearer path to creating more space for meaningful, sustainable success. There's more info and booking on Eventbrite, and I'll share the link for that in the show notes. And if you book onto all 3 in one go, you'll get a 25% discount off the total cost. All right, let's now dive into the topic for today's episode, which is about productivity that replenishes. In this episode of the series about rewriting the rules of work, we're talking about what productivity can look like when it nourishes us instead of depletes us. This is about how you and your team can work better, because regenerative productivity isn't about doing more faster. It is about designing systems that replenish rather than drain. So we'll look at how to move beyond the tyranny of to-do lists to start building capacity, especially for founders and team members navigating unique energy needs, whether you're neurodiverse, parenting, caregiving, or managing your health. But first, let's define this concept. What do I mean by this term regenerative productivity? Regenerative productivity is about working with your natural energy rhythms, creating systems that support recovery and deep work, and allowing space for flexibility, including for those with neurodiverse, caregiving, or accessibility needs. In both my book, The Cadence Effect, and in Season 5 of the Creating Cadence podcast, which is episodes 26 to 30, I explored the concept of intentional productivity. It's an approach that encourages working with intention rather than impulse, choosing where our energy and focus go, and setting boundaries to protect that focus. It incorporates foundational practices to build a toolkit of skills both inside and outside of work that support us in work and in life. Intentional productivity is regenerative productivity in that it builds on that concept and also draws from the principles of what Cal Newport calls slow productivity. In his book by the same name, published in 2024, Newport argues that productivity should be about doing fewer things, but doing them better and at a sustainable pace. It's about depth over speed, recovery over exhaustion, and long-term output over short-term performance. With intentional productivity or regenerative productivity, it's also about speeding up or slowing down the pace based on needs of our body, our work demands, and so forth. In essence, it's about flexibility, adapting the pace rather than staying at a continual pace, and that's what I also mean by creating cadence. This model also aligns with the concept of biological productivity, recognizing that our brains and bodies function in cycles, not in straight lines. And I've spoken about our circadian and ultradian rhythms in other episodes before. Regenerative productivity centers on how we feel while we work, not just what we get done. That means allowing for mental recovery, using energy rhythms as a guide for scheduling, and designing flexible workflows that reflect people's real lives, especially for those who are neurodivergent, menopausal, parenting, caregiving, or managing chronic health needs. But it's also about making supportive allowances for different ways of working based on our individual needs, whether that's environmental adaptations, sensory considerations, or assistive technology to support us. It can take a lot of energy for people with neurodiverse tendencies to work in traditional working environments that are set up for neurotypical people. That causes extra stress, it drains and depletes, affecting our performance. And that's why flexible or hybrid or remote working can sometimes be better options for people who are neurodivergent, even if their tendencies are not overt. For example, for me, being able to control my external environment is super important because I have sensory processing sensitivities. I'm highly sensitive to noise and to bright or flashing light. So I can really struggle in open workplace scenarios because it can become far too distracting, which then makes me feel agitated and anxious, which in turn affects my focus and my ability to be productive. So if I'm trying to do creative work or deep focus work like writing for clients or researching and scripting my podcast or strategizing on the design of a new digital product or developing my next Substack article, I need a distraction-free space where I can devote 3 hours of solid focus to one project at a time with no distractions. And for this, I'm much better off working on my own in my home office to achieve that. But when I'm working on less taxing tasks, such as admin or marketing work, I don't mind the background chatter of being in my co-working space. And in those cases, I can also find it invigorating having company while I work and being able to be more social. So personally, I'm fortunate in that I'm able to adapt my environment to suit my working needs. And this means that I can work at my best. If you have teams that need to work in-house, consider your office layout and how sensory stimuli play out. What are the acoustics like? Is it too hot or cold? Do you have a variety of spaces where people can work based on the type of work they do? Is the office culture a quiet one? In essence, regenerative productivity is about building a work rhythm that restores rather than depletes and supports diverse ways of being productive. Taking into account your and your team's energy needs can make a massive difference to productivity, performance, and team morale. And that's why flexible working options are so important and necessary as part of future-proofing our businesses and building healthy cultures. But you may still be asking, in the bigger scheme of things, why does regenerative productivity really matter? Well, we're now surrounded by robots, but we're not robots, not yet anyway. The old model of constant output ignores our humanity, and it's costing us. Women in menopause, parents, neurodiverse people, caregivers, we all need work cultures that recognize and support the cyclical capacity and multi-layered life complexity that we all experience. Let's look at some of the positive implications of employing regenerative productivity practices and why they matter for your business. The first positive outcome is enhanced well-being and job satisfaction. This is important because it helps to create stronger retention and healthier teams, both of which lead to reduced turnover costs. When people feel seen, supported, and able to work more autonomously in ways that suit them, they're more likely to stay. There are numerous studies by Deloitte, Gallup, and Microsoft that indicate that businesses lose hundreds of billions in turnover and lost productivity due to burnout. As I've mentioned before, it's a widespread problem, and no job role or industry is safe from the clutches of burnout. Regenerative systems of productivity that replenish energy help to prevent burnout, which in turn helps to prevent the attrition that occurs when people drop out due to burnout. If you're supporting healthier cultures and workflows at work, you'll save on rehiring costs and build a more loyal workforce. The second benefit of engaging more regenerative productivity practices is that of deeper creativity and innovation, both of which create a competitive edge for all businesses, not just creative ones. The brain needs downtime to synthesize, create, and innovate. When we build in mental white space in our days, we create room for insight and originality to percolate. Research by Adam Grant, Brad Stulberg, and others shows that reflection time enhances idea generation and problem solving. In fast-moving sectors, this isn't a luxury, it's a strategic advantage. The third positive outcome of regenerative productivity is that it creates more inclusive and adaptive workplaces, and that in turn helps us to build resilient, future-proof work cultures. Flexible, cyclical workflows accommodate different ways of thinking and working. This increases access and equity and widens your talent pool. Businesses that offer adaptive work cultures are more attractive to all generations of the workforce, and in particular to Gen Z and millennials, whose generational values include prioritizing well-being and purpose over pay alone. So how do these ideas play out in real companies and with real people? What does it look like when businesses intentionally slow down, design around energy, and create work rhythms that support human flourishing? Here's some real-world examples. Ali Green, co-author of Remote Works and a solopreneur herself, redesigned her entire work structure after experiencing burnout in her role at a large organization. Ali got laser-focused on how she executed her work and who she collaborated with. She moved to asynchronous workflows, adjusted to longer project timelines, and implemented self-imposed sabbaticals from work for rest and recovery. What she found was that her consultancy work actually grew because she could bring more energy and strategic clarity to fewer but better fitted clients. In her own words, when I slowed down, my results got better. Second example is Buffer. I've mentioned them before. They're the social media management app. They went fully remote in 2015 and implemented 4-day working cycles in 2021. And the Buffer team have put a lot of effort into building healthy remote relationships with their team and empowering their employees to create personalized work schedules that encourage flexibility. They operate with self-directed schedules that focus on asynchronous work and working styles which support neurodiverse and remote team members. They also have a transparent online dashboard that's visible for anyone to view how they run their business. It includes examples of time off, salaries for different roles, and how the business allocates resources and money. Another example is the company Dropbox. In 2020, they shifted to what they call a virtual-first working strategy. They deem this to be a more enlightened way of working, where they focus on how they work, not where they work, to design a sustainable, thriving workplace for the future. Dropbox's best practices incorporate the flexibility of a remote-first model with core collaboration hours and deep work periods, but they also facilitate opportunities for in-person connections for both local and global team building, brainstorming, and strategic planning. To quote Melanie Rosenwasser, their Chief People Officer, with Virtual First, we saw an opportunity to take a more purposeful approach while giving employees the flexibility they were looking for, and that approach has led to clear benefits, including higher employee engagement and retention. If you have a small team or work on your own, have a listen to any of the following Creating Cadence episodes for more examples of regenerative working practices. Episode 58 with Julie Fisher about thriving mindsets, Episode 62 with Magdalena Rungaldier about sustainable working, Episode 64 is with Heather Ingram and we talk about flow. Episode 79 with Larry Brangman about hybrid working. Episode 82 with Laura Harrison about balance in your business. And Episode 83 with Abigail Best about purposeful business. I'll share links to those episodes in the show notes. So what are some simple ways that you can take action to build more regenerative productivity practices for yourself and your business? Here's 3 suggestions. The first is to design your workflow around energy, not hours. Identify peak work windows and protect them. Encourage deep work sprints and recovery breaks. Track your personal energy levels over a week using 90-minute windows to identify when you're typically more focused or more drained during the day. Get clear on your chronotype and see how this corresponds with your energy zones. If you're not sure of your chronotype, take Dr. Michael Brewis' chronotype quiz. There'll be a link in the show notes for you to check out. And once you know your chronotype, color code your calendar by energy zone. Then shift demanding tasks like strategic planning or creative work into your high energy zones and save email and admin for low energy times. If you work with a team, encourage them to do the same. Aside from valuable learnings that you'll gain to help restructure your workflows, this is a great team-building exercise too. And with the rise of AI, there are helpful tools like Clockwise that can help to craft the perfect schedule and coordinate collaborative deep work blocks, all based on your preferences. My second suggestion is to rethink the to-do list. This is about defining what a productive day looks like for you, and moving from a flat checklist that can be overwhelming when you haven't ticked all the boxes in a day, to a more dynamic, energy-aware system. One way to do this is to use task batching and time blocking around work that requires different types of attention energy, for example, creative work versus admin energy. You could batch things like all calls or meetings or marketing work or deep work to happen on one day, or time block them in specific blocks on specific days. Or when it comes to structuring your tasks into a regular productive daily routine, you could try the 1-3-5 method. That's taking on 1 big task, 3 medium ones, and 5 small ones in your day. Another alternative is to follow the 3-3-3 plan, courtesy of Oliver Burkeman. That involves spending 3 hours on your most important project and then including 3 shorter tasks and 3 maintenance tasks in your daily schedule. You could also use analog journals like I do. I loosely follow the bullet journal method coupled with a digital calendar. Or if digital forms of task tracking are more your style, then consider tools like Notion, Sunsama, Asana, or Todoist, which can also help to keep things simple but organized. You could categorize tasks not just by urgency, but by energy and attention level, and also consider by theme. For example, I color code my electronic calendar based on whether the scheduled tasks are client work, creative tasks, admin tasks, general prep work like marketing and outreach, meetings, personal projects, health and fitness, social activities, and other life stuff. That way, I can see at a glance how my energy needs to be spent in a day. The third thing that you could do is to prototype your ideal week. This involves running a 2-week work-life experiment to trial a revised schedule that introduces 1 small regenerative shift and then observe the results. Perhaps you include new white space every day for recovery, or you experiment with a more flexible start and end time. Other ideas for this experiment could include no meeting Fridays, movement lunch hours, or Monday morning strategy walks and talks instead of having to dive straight into inbox triage. If you're doing this with a team, document the experiment in a shared doc or comms channel. Invite reflections from your team, and if it works, systematize it. Then think about what other simple regenerative shifts you can introduce. This iterative approach to redesigning your work week mirrors typical product design in that it's agile, flexible, and human first. All right, we've covered a lot, so let's wrap up. If the way that we work is draining us, it will eventually drain our businesses too. Regenerative productivity isn't just a better way to work, it's the only sustainable way forward. By shifting away from rigid, output-obsessed systems and moving towards energy-aligned rhythms, we create capacity for depth, resilience, and innovation. We build cultures where people don't just perform, they thrive. And this matters deeply in a world where complexity, speed, and volatility have become the norm. When your productivity system is regenerative, you build a resilient nervous system, not just for yourself, but also for your business. This isn't about doing less just for the sake of it. It's about doing what matters, when it matters, in ways that support the people doing the work that matters. Thanks so much for listening. I'll be back soon with the next episode, but before you go, a few quick notes. If you enjoyed today's episode, please rate and review the show and share it with a friend. It really helps more people to find us. If you're looking for a natural boost for your energy and focus, use my magic code MICH20 for 20% off Magic Mind productivity shots and 48% off subscriptions. head to magicmind.com/mich20 to get yours. For deeper dives into building a more conscious business, subscribe to my Substack at creatingcadence.substack.com. You'll find more about my work at creatingcadence.co, and you can grab a copy of my book at thecadenceeffect.com. And if sponsoring the podcast sounds like a fit for your brand, I'd love to chat. Drop me a line at hello@creatingcadence.co. So until next time, keep moving forwards with courage, curiosity, and cadence. Bye for now.